I received a lot of questions about why I'm so adamant that the Games for A articles are completely false and why I'm being so active when talking about this, when dismissing, all these claims from Grom's Clownfish TV, all these people saying that Nintendo is doomed and that the Power World is going to win the lawsuit and Pokemon is finished. It's like, remember when the Switch 2 first came out? And it was supposed to fail and that everyone hated it and that it was supposed to be this like the end for Nintendo and how the Switch was like done and how they were never going to recover from like fastest selling console ever, right? Like we've seen this time and time again with these online internet based controversies where they run their mouths, they make stuff up, they make all these wild claims about Nintendo, and then they're surprised when Nintendo wins. It happens over and over and over again. And like the Power World situation, it really is a particularly blatant example of it because even the slightest bit of research would indicate that all the narratives that are being pushed forward are wrong, that Pokemon is not going to take an L in court, that Power World is not going to survive, that it's not relevant, that it's not competitive, that Pokemon is still doing very, very well. The grift is still in full swing at the moment, but yet every time that something happens, like say when Nintendo got the US patent approved, for example, there was this huge like push to like kind of deny it and act as if the judge was just corrupt or incompetent. And now like there's Power World is challenging the patent, re-examining it. Like now they're coming out and saying that like, oh, it's an epic win for Pocket Pair and Power World, and it just isn't true. Like these people have no idea what's actually happening. They are just blindly believing some random article that is telling them what to believe. It's kind of crazy if you actually read game rants, like if you read in between the lines, like how biased against Nintendo it actually is. It's a very slanted article, and if you actually look at all these other articles from IGN and the like they all cite this specific source. And if you look into the information, if you look into like say the narrative that the director of the patent office is re-examining it, you kind of find that there's no source for that. If you look into like what a typical reexamination looks like, all it is just another company is disputing the patent, having it looked at, and trying to have it nullified. Power World is trying to get the patent thrown out, but the fact that they haven't is pretty strongly indicated. Oh, by the way, the Japanese patent that was rejected can just be it can just be amended and then resubmitted. So again, considering the other two patents that were not rejected, like Nintendo's still winning. So again, like all the hopes that Power World fans have had over the years, like the idea that Pokemon is abusing its popularity, the idea that Nintendo commits legal warfare, the idea that Nintendo is an evil corporation, that Pocket Pair did nothing wrong. Like all of that is very observably not true. But the online gaming community is in the middle of hyping up this narrative, this very lucrative narrative that Power World is gonna win and it's gonna like destroy Nintendo and it's gonna be a very successful brand going forward. And it's not a successful brand now. Honestly, people keep citing that like this idea that it sold 30 million units, and meanwhile, you look at like the Pal Farms announcement trailer, and it didn't even crack like 500,000, right? Like again, you look at like the spin-offs, you look at like the update schedule, you look at like how many people are actually playing the game, and what you see is something that faded away into irrelevancy even before Pokemon released its next generation, right? Power World fell off like before that year's even Pokemon Day event even premiered. So like, it wasn't good enough for Power World to do well. It would have had to like deal with like all of this, Pokemon related things, the TCG and the merchandise and all that. Like the video games alone are stopping Palworld, and yet we're supposed to just ignore all the other things, all the things the Pokemon Company does. We're supposed to just ignore like how successful the brand is. We're supposed to just believe that like, well, Power World merchandise is selling on Amazon. Like, I heard so many people say that like Power World merchandise was super popular. When this thing first came out, and then you go to retail, you go online, and what do you see? Pokemon everywhere. Like nobody's talking about Power World anymore. Outside of like the lawsuit grift, like this game had no momentum behind it at all. Outside of like Westerners trying to gaslight you into thinking this is an open and shut case for Power World, that Nintendo is gonna lose epically. It's There's really no momentum behind it. Like nobody actually plays and enjoys the game. The game itself has no audience. It is fueled entirely by Nintendo and Pokemon hate. And when you take that into consideration, when you look at the circumstances, like I have to wonder why exactly is the community so adamant that Power World has to win? Because they keep doing this thing where they're just like, we're doing it to protect video games, we're doing it to protect creativity. We need to stop patents, and we need to stop patent trolling. Which, by the way, this is not patent trolling because Nintendo is utilizing the patents in their own products. Patent trolling would be if they filed patents that they had no intention of actually using. Yeah, again, they don't know the simplest things, and they just throw out terminology out there without the slightest idea of what they're talking about, without the slightest bit of research. Like me skimming a Wikipedia article gives me more credibility than any of these people. And I've gone like a little bit into more detail than just that, but like the more I look into like the Power World copes, the more I look into their lives, the more I realize just how malicious and just delusional they actually are. Like they really are just screaming into a void, thinking that they're going to like defy reality, that they're going to stop Nintendo from winning this lawsuit by accusing them of being patent trolls, and just like acting as if Power World is like the industry good guy. It's not gonna work. No matter what happens, Power World loses. No matter what happens, Pokemon will win. It's honestly, I think at this stage that this situation says more about the online gaming community than it says about Pocket Pair or Nintendo, because like people really desperately wanted Nintendo to fail. And, much like with the Switch 2, it just didn't happen. Not only did it not happen, like you got the exact opposite result. People seed about the Switch 2 price point, they seed about the games, and they said it would fail. And it's the fastest selling console ever right now, and will continue to be a success going forward. Like how many people have we seen over the past several months say the Switch 2 was doomed to failure, and that nobody was talking about it, and that nobody is buying third party games on it? And like that's just very observably not true at this stage. We really are at this point where Nintendo has won the console war, and we're just seeing like the aftermath of it, of people who grew up like in the trenches, advocating for PC and like Xbox and PlayStation, like just coping and seething about it. Like, well, Nikkei is more popular. Like, Nikkei isn't even more popular than Pokemon Go. It's not even more popular than like Pokemon Masters. Like, they keep doing this thing where like, oh, mobile brings in more money. Like, that isn't like that isn't some crazy thing like oh mobile that'll destroy Pokemon. Like it's just like come on. So what we're gonna see going forward, what we're gonna see like when this situation develops, uh we are going to see like more and more L's being taken in Power World's direction. I think more and more people are starting to notice that the author of these articles, Florian Muller, does have an agenda, that he is trying to like undermine the lawsuit, that he is trying to influence people into believing like ridiculous things about patent law and about the lawsuit in general. Like the idea that Nintendo's just going to get these patents thrown out, or that they're going to lose, that they're groundless. It's just not going to fly. I am very, very interested in seeing just what the copes are going to be when Nintendo actually does win this. I'm very excited to see it happen. Like if it's anything like the Switch 2 winning though, like they'll just chalk it up to be like to corporate nepotism or saying it was because of fanboys or saying it was because of like this or that. They'll make some kind of excuse and then quickly move on to the next thing. But I do think that Pokemon fans really do need to stand up and fight going forward. I am tired of every single Pokemon release just being like met with like all this insane skepticism and just degeneracy from the community. Like I just Pokemon Legends EA, like when it first came out, was hated by the general public, and now it's gone on to be like a huge cult classic and like something that a lot of people are really into. But like the fact of the matter is, like on day one, like everyone was adamantly saying this game was going to be a huge failure and that like it was incredibly disappointing. I even saw people saying it ripped off Palworld, which is like just insane to me. But the simple fact of the matter is, the game was still highly successful. It was popular. Everyone loved it. Like what the online gaming community says does not matter in any way, shape, or form. That's just the reality of what we're seeing at this point. That's just the reality of what we're seeing when it comes to like this Nintendo discourse and this Nintendo hate is that like the more you complain, if you complain endlessly about every single Nintendo game that comes out, like eventually, after a certain point, people are going to stop listening to you, especially if you're blatantly making a point about how you don't own the games or the hardware. Like, if you don't own the games and the hardware, you don't have the credentials to criticize them in any meaningful capacity. I have a lot of issues with Pokemon Legends ZA, but I would never like attack people for not liking it or for thinking it's their favorite game because it's more of a preference thing, right? Like I don't like it as much as Legends Arceus or Scarlet and Violet or a lot of other Pokemon games, but I still enjoyed it. Like the idea that like the narrative that people had that like it's the worst game ever, like it's the worst game of all time, like the Pokemon Company is doomed, like that was just so blatantly out of touch with reality that it really, truly, genuinely needed to be called out for what it was. Is just a gigantic cope.